Tears of the Kingdom releases in a little less than a month, and there is still a ton that we don't know about the game. Fortunately, thanks to Nintendo's recent epic final official trailer, E.G. Aonuma's 10 minutes of gameplay, a few shorter trailers and teasers over the years, as well as other marketing materials that we have received from Nintendo, we have plenty of hints and clues that will probably keep us theorizing until release day. Among these is the question of what degree of temporal shifting will Hyrule experience in Tears of the Kingdom. This is something they have been hinting at since the very first teaser back in 2019. In that video, a haunting chorus of voices is played in reverse, while a pulsing heartbeat lingers on from the ancient past, its accelerating tempo hinting that something long dormant is about to awaken. Then there is the reverse teardrop in the E3 2021 trailer, the Ouroboros imagery hinting at cyclical events starting in 2022, and arguably the slow motion effect applied to the shot of Link diving after a free-falling Zelda. Every time I see this shot, I keep expecting a magical force to rewind the tape as a means of preventing the fall in the first place. And then there are the murals, which appear to be ancient, yet contain imagery of events that one could understandably assume are occurring in the present. The figure on the right at first appears to be our Princess Zelda, albeit with long hair again, and the bokoblins have longer horns like the ones from the trailers. And now with this new trailer, the evidence is even stronger. For starters, we see a new character who is all but certainly this figure from the mural. And then we see this character, who likewise is most likely this character from the mural. But again, the murals appear ancient, and yet they contain figures that we are now seeing in the flesh. Shouldn't they be long dead? And what's more, our Princess Zelda, the one from Breath of the Wild's era, is kneeling before the first figure. Somehow, they are clearly existing in the same time period. We also see our Zelda standing on this platform looking up at the sky, yet there are no sky islands anywhere to be seen, indicating this shot takes place at a time when the islands are still part of the surface, assuming these islands ascended like the ones in Skyward Sword did, of course. It's possible we see how Zelda ended up in the past. We see her holding this Magatama-shaped tear, and it has the same symbol as the back of Link's magic hand. This symbol is likely a stylized version of the kanji for time. And when we see Zelda fall down this chasm, her left hand is clutched. As she descends, it starts to glow yellow, possibly indicating it will save her from a worse fate by teleporting her to the safety of the past. What if the reason Zelda is clutching the tear at that very moment is that she pulled it off the corpse of Ganondorf? What if it was placed there to create a sort of stasis, and thus assisting the green hand in preventing his revival? We know that Ganondorf adorned at least one tear on his forehead via this image provided by Nintendo. As for this new figure, based on the arm adornments it wears, this character is likely the ancient source of the green arm sealing the corpse of Ganondorf. The green energy is likely the remnants of their spirit, because they are long dead, and the jewelry we see in the trailer shots is similar to what we see in this shot. But we know that Link is wearing a bracelet reminiscent of the new character, probably even the exact same one after the sealing hand fuses with Link's. Therefore, it doesn't seem possible that this new figure can be alive in the same era as the Link we see skydiving around Hyrule with the said bracelet. So if Tears of the Kingdom will contain cutscenes from previous eras, how exactly will Link experience those plot points? We know that one of Link's new abilities is Recall, which enables him to reverse the entropy of objects for his own utility, such as traveling up to Sky Islands or defeating monsters. Will Link use Recall to bring the past back to the present? Or will Link literally travel back in time to witness them for himself? Or will some ancient being who did bear witness retell them to Link in a cutscene? Given that none of the marketing or gameplay appear to show Link adventuring in previous eras without Sky Islands and Sky Rubble littered all over the surface of Hyrule, I assume it is some version of the latter, but this brings up an interesting problem. Given that this Hyrule has been confirmed to be an open world just like Breath of the Wild's, if the past will be retold to Link by another entity, what if the player controlling Link fails to encounter this entity? Will the player simply miss out on crucial plot points because of their own poor dumb luck? When the developers of Breath of the Wild were deciding on how they wanted to tell a linear story in an open world game, they recognized this wasn't going to be an easy task. In more linear games, like Ocarina of Time, the exposition is revealed to you in a way that most stories are told, sequentially. Contrast this with Breath of the Wild where, once a player exits the Great Plateau area, all bets are off. Players can walk, run, glide, climb, swim, or ride any direction they want, and such freedom prohibited the developers from implementing any sort of purely linear storytelling system without risking alienating most people who played the game, because most people are not going to follow the same path. In an interview with Nintendo Dream in July 2018, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom director Hidemaro Fujibayashi discussed this challenge. In that interview, Fujibayashi said the following: "If the story is in chronological order, it's of course incompatible. So I began thinking about making 3 main plot points that could be enjoyed from any point in the story." Interviewer: 3 main plot points? Fujibayashi: "One is about defeating Ganon, one about finding the Master Sword, and the other about knowing the past." However, the problem with the Master Sword story was that we didn't know when players were going to pull it out, so we decided to make it one of the major events somewhere in the story. Then later in the interview, the interviewer asks, "Back to the story. You said you made the Master Sword story one of the major events, and focused the main story on 2 stories that can be played from anywhere." Fujibayashi: "For Ganon, it's just a story about defeating him, so it can be a good story from anywhere. But for the story of learning about the past, we searched for a way to make the main storyline understandable from any point of view. The result was the fragmentation and scattering of the stories. This fragmentation and scattering of stories is the Captured Memories main quest given to Link by Impa in Kakariko Village. It's a non-linear scavenger hunt for locations where Link must search for points on the map based on photographs saved within his Sheikah slate. Because the spirit of the King of Hyrule tells Link to venture to Kakariko after exiting the Great Plateau early in the game, players can infer that this is the appropriate path to experience a degree of linearity to Breath of the Wild if they choose to do so. And from there, the recovered memories help the player patch together the story of the past, if they are so interested. With no proof that Link will experience the past himself, I think it's likely Tears of the Kingdom will also rely on some sort of recovered memory system. But how exactly will this work? I think there are 3 options of how this could be implemented. I think the most likely option is that Link experiences the past secondhand from someone or something that knows about the past. This is exactly what happens in Breath of the Wild multiple times, such as the retelling of the history of Hyrule by Impa, the story of the Calamity by King Rome, or Cass's songs in the Champion's Ballad DLC. In the latter, the bard Cass spends time learning about the deeds of the champions 100 years ago, then memorializes them with song. When Link hears these songs, Cass does such a wonderful job that Link is able to visualize those events as if he was there himself. So it would appear that if the storyteller is skilled, Link can accurately visualize past events by simply hearing about them. Given how low the barrier of entry is for this option, I think it is definitely a possibility. And to take this even further, it has been suggested on Reddit that Zelda is communicating with Link from the past, possibly by encoding messages within the Master Sword. Given how low the bar was set in Breath of the Wild to experience past events secondhand, it seems entirely possible Link could read or hear those messages, and we as players experience them as full-fledged cutscenes. The second option is via the new Sheikah slate Nintendo showed off on Twitter and the new trailer. These devices are capable of storing footage, so if it was around in the ancient past, it could have recorded events that Link will view in the present. But this seems unlikely. Breath of the Wild's Sheikah slate was built 10,000 years in the past, and I'm assuming the Tears of the Kingdom mural events predate that because it depicts events not talked about in Breath of the Wild. And there is compelling evidence that this new slate is newer than the one we saw in Breath of the Wild, possibly being built by Impa's sister Purah. Lastly, We know that Link obtains a magical arm that presumably once belonged to a green spirit from another time, and that this new arm gives Link amazing new abilities. But what if that green spirit's memories become Link's memories? In the February 2023 Nintendo Direct trailer, we get this shot of Link gazing at the arm as if it is speaking to him, or even that he is discovering a new memory from it. The arm could be an instance of a Tsukumogami, which are old objects in Japanese folklore that have acquired a kami or a spirit. From my understanding, the objects can either be so old that they essentially become spirits themselves, or they can be everyday objects that are possessed by ghosts. The Legend of Zelda series already has plenty examples of this, such as the innocent spirits imprisoned in the masks of Majora's Mask, or perhaps the spirit of the Master Sword Fi herself in Skyward Sword. And even Breath of the Wild has examples of this. When Link interacts with goddess statues, they speak to him directly, and refer to themselves as Hylia, implying they may contain some form of Hylia's essence. And there are a few other objects as well that speak to those who interact with them. When Riju and Link battle Vana Boris, Riju wears the Gerudo Thunder Helm, and upon besting the divine beast, she hears Urbosa's voice within the helm. When I wore the Thunder Helm and fought along your side, I thought I heard a name called out on the wind. Riju, I hadn't been called that name in a while. That strong, warm voice, it must have belonged to Urbosa. And there is another example of this from the Zora champion Mipha as told by one of the Zora stone monuments. After she fell to the Calamity Ganon, her people sent the Lightscale Trident down the Zora River, and when they did, the trident began to glow, and Mipha's voice rang loud and clear for all Zora to hear, with the words, "The Lightscale Trident and I are one. Abandon your grief and know joy once again. Do not cry, just remember." Because of all this, I believe there are many possibilities for Link to experience historical characters and prominent events in the past of Tears of the Kingdom without doing so firsthand. And as much as Zelda fans want some of the series' classic elements to return, like a main story rich with exposition and deep with lore, I believe we should temper our expectations given the precedent set by Breath of the Wild. Shout out to Zelda Lore for discovering the time kanji way back in October of 2022. If you liked this theory, please consider subscribing to me on YouTube or following me on TikTok. Thank you.